Okay, so I've encoded this 32-bit protected mode and 64-bit long mode kernel. It's just it just boots into protected mode and then echoes out your input. It scans the keyboard for input and then it puts it out onto the VJ memory, BIOS memory, VJ BIOS. I'll show you anyway. Here we go. Here's the kernel. So VJ memory is 0 by B8000. So that's in high. So back in the old days, back when it was MS-DOS, you had 64K bytes of RAM, and that was used for applications. And above the 64K, so above 0 by 8 AA0000, um, the that's the 10th segment. So the segments were in 64 kilobyte pages. So you had 64 kilobytes, 64 kilobytes, 64 kilobyte, and so on. So up to 64K, so that's 10, right? So that's 10 segments, 10 pages or 10 segments. And so on the 10th segment, A00000, that's your VGA graphics mode. And B800000 is your text mode VGA buffer. So using that knowledge, we can actually access uh, the text width and height, and we can locate the location in memory. Where if we output an ASCII character to that memory, it will print it onto the screen. So you treat the VGA memory like an array, and it multiplies the row with the VGA width. So if you have 80 by 25, 80 times the row, so it goes. It's like a converting a two-dimensional row and column into one-dimensional array. So plus column, okay. And then here's a clear screen. Just sets it all to space. This ASCII character for space. And here's the scan code. So this is your keyboard scan code. So reads from the keyboard using the input byte operation, CPU code, CPU opcode INB, or in or out. So you have in for inputting from ports and out to output to a port. So um, it uses get char, which is just polling the input buffer, the input port. Sorry, this is the keyboard port 0 by 60, and converts it to scan code to ASCII. Okay, and then this kernel is just clear screen, print the 32-bit protected mode, and a greater than sign. And if you get car, if it's a new line, print a new prompt. That's it. It's very simple. Okay, and then we go look at the boot assembly code. So this is the kernel offset. So it loads itself into memory at 0 by 1000, which is the first um, page, first segment. Um, it needs to be above the it needs to be above the vector table, interrupt vector table, which starts off at 0 by 0, and it goes up to 256 times 4, which is 1,000 bytes. So, no, times 4, times 8. Is it times 8 or times 4? I forget. Anyway, there's 256 vectors for interrupt vectors, and I think it's times 4 for 4 bytes each. So that's 32-bit address. And so that's your interrupt vector table. That starts off in 16-bit mode. So we leave that alone, and then load the kernel into 0 by 1000 hexadecimal. Okay, so here this just sets, okay, so XOR AX AX, that means set AX to equal 0. That just clears out AX. So if you XOR itself, any register that XORs itself against itself just clears itself out because you're exclusive OR, right? And then it moves 0 to DS, data segment, moves 0 to the extra segment, moves 0 to the stack segment, sets the stack pointer to 0 by 700. That's arbitrary. It can be anything high, but not too high in memory, but high enough. Um, so this is a boot drive to DL. So now it loads up 30, loads up here 32 sectors. Load 32 sectors from disk into 0 by 10000. Um, so you'll see that this is the kernel offset. That's where it will load it to. So this is actually a BIOS call, zero interrupt 13. So that's actually a BIOS read from disk call, which all BIOSes will handle automatically. It will read from the disk. So when you boot up, you use BIOS functions to help you. So BIOS in a computer, BIOS is very important because it provides functionality that the rest of the operating system needs, such as low-level reading from a hard disk. So this is what it does. It's jump compare. If there's a disk error, it goes to disk error. Print. So interrupt 10 is a VJ code, so it prints out the letter E for error, I guess. So once it's loaded the kernel into 0 by 1000, it sets the global descriptor table. So look at this global descriptor table. Um, it's um, it's basically what is the global descriptor table for? Is to define the CPU memory access rules and security privileges in x86 architecture. So it basically splits the memory up. Um, anyway, this code here is what sets it to protected mode. And it's a far jump here. You see, it's got a segment and then an offset. So it's a far jump to the protected mode code. But this code here, CR0 is CPU register 0. So it moves CPU register 0 to EAX and enable the first bit, EAX, and then reset the register. So don't touch any other variable in the CRO, CPU register 0, except the first bit. Enable the first bit, and then jump to protected mode. So if you look at the protected mode code, what does it do? It just sets the data segment. So data segment is set here at the just past GDT data, which I guess is this stuff here. Um, GDT data by GDT start. It replaces it. That's funny. Okay, so um, that's pretty funny, actually. I actually need to understand GDT in more detail, but I think what this does is the GDT descriptor is the end here minus the start minus one. So it goes to the beginning here. And then GDT start is the address. So this ends up getting loaded into the GDT descriptor. And then later on, the data segment and the code segment is set, well, the data segment is set as this address here. GDT data minus GDT start. I actually don't know what that could be. Oh, that's the size. That's more than the size. Uh, that would be the size. Um, anyway, it's just weird. This is what happens when you vibe code you don't understand. Um, but anyway, it sets those segments up to the data segment, stack segment, extra segment. ES is extra segment, FS is also extra segment, GS is also extra segment, and then the music stack went out. But at this point, you can use 32-bit code. So this is actually 16-bit. Well, actually, it's actually 32-bit. But because I can tell because the ESP here, that's the 32-bit code. This is all 16-bit mode because the registers are 16-bit. AX is a 16-bit register. If it's EAX, it's a 32-bit register. Okay, so that's that. Let's have a look at GDT. Okay, so this is limit and the base. That's your GDT stuff. Okay, this is the GDT entry structure. So if we go back and look at here, this is the GDT descriptor. So limit, so the GDT minus one and the base, linear address of GDT.